It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Wednesday, March 5th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. From 6 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, host Jake Nichols brings you news, weather, sports, and in-depth interviews with newsmakers from across Wyoming, presented with Jake's unique humor and lively commentary. Just click on the Cowboy State Daily homepage and join the conversation. Wyoming Treasurer Curt Meier and Secretary of State Chuck Gray are both dreaming big about Trump's golden age, particularly when it comes to its legacy industries like coal. The two want to see a port sited in the state of Washington, which has already blocked such an effort once, so that Wyoming can send its coal to market in the Pacific Rim countries. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that during a discussion last week aimed at refocusing the state's Economic Development Agency, both Gray and Meier expressed support for trying again for a port on the West Coast.
Curt Meier has already gone out and sought a legal opinion to find out if Wyoming bought land in Washington, would that create legal standing in the event that Wyoming tries again to build a port in Washington to take coal to market? So what happened last time Wyoming tried to do that? Washington blocked it. It said that according to its environmental laws, that this was a hazard, that it would be bad for the environment. And Wyoming's contention at the time, they brought a suit, and their contention is that's really a violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause. You can't block a landlocked state from doing legal business because you just don't like coal anymore. And so they filed suit. But the legal process took a long time, and the case fell apart when the developer went bankrupt.
While Gray and Meier have sparred, sometimes publicly, the two men seem to agree about the idea of an investment vehicle in Washington or some other West Coast state to help further assure the chances of a port effort in Washington. With one swoop of the pen, Wyoming will offer public money for private education to all grade levels while expanding its voucher program for pre-K students. Governor Mark Gordon announced Tuesday that he'll sign House Enrolled Act 52 into law, a bill that creates universal school vouchers for K-12 kids. Cowboy State Daily's Leah Wolfson reports that the law will also provide income-based pre-K educational savings accounts, or ESAs, for children 4 years and older in Wyoming.
This is a pretty big deal. $7,000 per child, no matter a parent's income. So you can make $200,000 a year, or you can make $20,000 a year. You'll still get $7,000 for your child to access private education with public dollars. Also part of that bill, it expanded the already existing program for pre-K school choice in Wyoming, boosting up the cap from 150% of the federal poverty level to 250% of the federal poverty level. And Wyoming is the only state in the country still to offer school choice for pre-K students.
Gordon said he believes providing support at the start of a student's education will lead to higher performing students down the road and eventually a better workforce, as well as helping working families. Wyoming legislators have fought back against a Biden administration effort that some say tries to price out oil and gas producers by hiking bond rates 1,400% and more. But Cowboy State Daily's Zach Sontag reports that a $45 million pool of money could help those operators with their bonding.
What they did was increase the cost of a bond on a single lease by 15-fold and on a blanket lease from $25,000 to $500,000. Now, the administration said that this was needed in order to protect the taxpayer from picking up the tab on reclamation. But Wyoming's leaders have said that it's going to be so exorbitant, it'll force many of the state's small operators out of business entirely. And in a state like Wyoming, where close to 80% of its operators are considered small and mid-sized operators, that could have outsized impacts, not just on production, but on the state's revenue. As a way to create a solution, the state has now developed a unique bonding pool system in which the Wyoming Oil and Gas Conservation Commission will partner with private insurers to draw up a framework that allows small operators to get access to the capital and the bonds they need to operate without having to post the full cash collateral up front, and instead pay the cost of the bond off over the period of the expected production of the well itself.
This innovative solution is being touted as the first of its kind by industry leaders and could change the paradigm for small oil and gas operations, and not just in Wyoming. 23-year-old Cody resident Kaylee Klein may never know what caused her to suffer seizures and fall into a coma on New Year's Eve, but her mother remains convinced that law enforcement hasn't done enough to get to the bottom of what happened. Klein and her mother allege that on New Year's Eve, Klein had her drink spiked with antifreeze at the popular Silver Dollar bar in Cody, causing her to be airlifted and hospitalized in Billings, Montana for nearly a week. But Leah Wolfson reports that the results of a police investigation released last Friday found no connection to poisoning and led to the Park County attorney closing the case.
The report from a neurologist and a medical examiner that was signed off on by Park County attorney Brian Skorek believes that she was not poisoned with antifreeze and that there's certain pieces of evidence to point to that. But the report does kind of leave out some ambiguity. And Amber Espinoza, Kaylee Klein's mother, disagrees with the findings. She shared a medical report with me that was given to Klein right after she was submitted to the hospital that does show she had trace amounts of antifreeze in her system. Skorek also interviewed a potential suspect that Klein had accused of poisoning her drink. Skorek found no evidence to determine that this person would have caused that, and no motivating factors as well.
The Silver Dollar Bar noted that it is one of the few establishments with bouncers and that they take extensive measures to maintain a safe environment. But Klein's mother said as a result of the Silver Dollar's comments, her daughter is now facing bullying and harassment. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Well, the weather is going to be a little more settled today. The strong winds that parts of the south and east and the snow showers that occurred across many other areas of Wyoming, well, all of that is shifted into the Midwest. So there's a little sliver of high pressure over the state today. Take advantage of it because by tonight, snow will be developing in far west and southwestern Wyoming, and by tomorrow morning, snow will have fallen or will start to fall over many areas of the central, the south, and the west as we have another Pacific storm system coming in. Now, this storm is a bit stronger, it's more moist, and it's moving slower than the last storm, and it's tracking a little more north. This is going to bring the best chances for snow we've seen in a while to places like Lander, Riverton, Thermopolis, up to Cody and Meeteetse, South Pass, over into Pinedale, along the I-80 corridor from southwestern Wyoming to about Laramie or so, then places like Wheatland and Torrington and Lusk and Douglas and Casper and Buffalo. All those places I just mentioned will see several inches of snow. Some of it could be quite heavy, starting late tonight and Thursday morning, continuing into early Friday. It looks like the far southeast corner and the far northeast corner of the state, while both locations will still get snow, the far southeast and the far northeastern parts of the state will see lighter amounts. But the east central, the west central, and southwest parts of Wyoming, be ready for an early spring storm that's going to produce significant snowfall and much colder temperatures. This will cause travel and livestock concerns from late tonight through early Friday.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
Wyoming Relay provides telephone access for people with hearing loss and access for people with speech disabilities. We offer services and specialized equipment at no cost to you. No matter what your level of hearing loss or speech disability, Wyoming Relay can help.
To avoid another catastrophic wildfire season and revive Wyoming's struggling timber industry, logging can't begin soon enough or happen fast enough. That's what some lumber industry leaders told state legislators on Tuesday. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that swaths of dead trees, many of them killed by insect infestations, remain a huge fire hazard.
We had that horrific wildfire season last year, especially in the western part of the state. That continues to be a concern, especially with we still have a lot of dead timber piling up in the forests all over the state because of beetle kill and other infestations and diseases that are killing trees. The way some people see it, at least people at that meeting saw it, is that logging and kicking Wyoming's timber mills back up into high gear is the answer, or one of the answers that can help mitigate this problem. The Trump administration is implementing some tariffs that might pinch down on the amount of timber coming from Canada, which industry leaders here hope will increase the demand for their product here and kind of take a dual approach of clearing some of the forests out to reduce the fire hazard while also boosting their industries.
Industry experts are finding hope in President Donald Trump's stance that the U.S. doesn't need Canadian timber, as timber from Canada flooding the American market has contributed to the Wyoming lumber industry's woes. 7 election bills, including a controversial ban on ballot drop boxes, met the chopping block in the Wyoming Senate in one blow going into the final week of the 2025 session. That drew Secretary of State Chuck Gray's criticism of the Senate for letting them die. Gray played an extremely active role in advocating for the election bills, openly endorsing them in committee testimony. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson spoke to Gray, who called the Senate leadership weak on conservative election integrity priorities that he says a lot of people in Wyoming want.
A lot of Gray's election bills have gone through the Senate this year. He's had 3 bills already passed into law. There's a few others that are still on the governor's desk waiting for consideration. But most importantly, a bill banning ballot drop boxes was one of the 7 that died on Friday. This was a cornerstone of Gray's 2022 Secretary of State campaign. He vowed that he was going to ban these boxes when he took office. And now it looks unlikely they'll even be banned for the 2026 election, when considering that next year's legislative session will be a budget session where bills not related to the budget are discouraged. And the fact that even if this were to be brought up, it would orchestrate some pretty significant changes immediately going into an election later that year. So this might have been his last chance to get that through.
All of the 7 election-related bills that were cut off this week had passed by a large majority in the House, but they were among a laundry list that failed to make the deadline to be read for the first time before the chamber adjourned. Strange lighted flying objects have been spotted in at least 8 Wyoming counties since October, sometimes over critical infrastructure like power plants and often flying in formation. Governor Mark Gordon on Monday vetoed a bill designed to give local law enforcement agents authority to deal with mystery drones over critical infrastructure, concerned that the bill directly contradicted federal law protecting aircraft. But Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that both houses of the legislature on Tuesday afternoon overrode the governor's veto.
The Wyoming legislature passed this law authorizing law enforcement agents to prosecute drone operators who fly over critical infrastructure and potentially disable or destroy those drones. That's the Wyoming fantasy. Every time we talk about drones, people say, shoot them down. The language was more careful than that, saying they could take reasonable steps if this is a problem. But Governor Gordon vetoed it late Monday, saying, whoa, this conflicts with federal law, which preempts Wyoming law, and it could lead to cops being federally prosecuted or in hot water if they destroy aircraft, which is a felony under federal law. But both chambers of the Wyoming legislature on Tuesday came back and overrode that veto, saying, sorry, we're going to signal that we're ready to fight for our airspace. It's noteworthy there's also a clause in the law saying the Attorney General will defend cops who act under this law.
The bill would have authorized Wyoming law enforcement to use reasonable actions to stop drones, including by disabling or damaging them, and it would let the governor deploy the Wyoming National Guard to stop problematic drones as well. And the smiling face on the billboard along the 2-lane highway in rural western Nebraska is a grim reminder of a family's loss and their desperate pleas for answers. It's been nearly 6 years since Moorcroft man Chance Engelbert disappeared on a weekend trip to visit his in-laws. Next to a photo of Engelbert's smiling face, the billboard reads, "What happened to me here on July 6, 2019? Cowboy State Daily's Jen Coker reports that question is one that plagues law enforcement and Engelbert's friends and family, all of whom have been desperately searching and waiting years for some kind of answer.
The thought behind the billboard is, they want people to come forward with information. So they think that if people drive by that every day, maybe that will make them feel bad, assuming they are holding back information, and they might want to come forward because money did did not work. At one point, they had a $220,000 reward, and it did not bring one person forward with credible information. Secondarily, it serves up meaning for them also. So Chance knows he's not forgotten. The grandmother said they were so proud of the life he was leading. He did his best in his marriage, and he did his best at everything. So it brings them great comfort to have his face on that billboard, so they can say, we have not forgotten about you, and we will not stop looking for you.
6 years after Engelbert's disappearance, there are still no answers, nor has law enforcement identified any people of interest in his disappearance. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel, or you can listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.